Hello, I want to say something about the role of self-discipline in our spiritual life. It's really critical that we learn to discipline ourselves. This is not easy, but if you're training for an Olympic medal or something, you've got to do a lot of discipline to be able to get the job done in the way that you're trained well. It's the same in the spiritual life too. Jesus says, anyone who wants to be my disciple, and we all want to be his disciple, anyone who wants to be my disciple must take up his cross daily and follow me. He says, the one who wants to save his life will lose it, but the one who loses his life for my sake, for the sake of the gospel, will find it. So that means we have to discipline ourselves to learn the art of self-denial. I've already spoken in an earlier series on the priorities of our life and establishing them well by scheduling. That's a discipline in itself. And when we discipline ourselves, we go against the grain, as it were, learning to say no to something for the sake of the greater good, the yes to a greater good. That's what we want to have, right? So it's good to have voluntary acts of self-denial happening in your life. So you learn the art of self-mastery. Denying my self-will, denying my self-interest, making hard decisions in favor of God and of others. So these voluntary acts of self-denial really need to come out of a right motivation, though. And that motivation needs to be love of God and love for others. Otherwise, if you have a poor motivation, it sort of might look good, but it doesn't really help you in your spiritual growth. For example, if you have a negative vision of God and his creation, you think the body's evil, you think the pleasure's bad, the harder the thing is, the better it is for your spiritual life. You have a negative attitude maybe towards food, alcohol, literature, dancing, sexuality, whatever. That's what we call a puritanical attitude to life. Some people in their first fervor go down that track. It's not really the best way to go. It's better to sort of have a more moderate way of understanding what it means to deny yourself. Otherwise, it's coming up of a warped view of life. Or you could have sort of just a poor self-image in a sort of sense of your own, a self-hate almost. And that's no good either, because it's a sort of sense of worthlessness about yourself. It is not what the Lord wants you to have. We need to be able to celebrate our own goodness, celebrate the goodness of creation, celebrate the goodness of God. But there is this art of denying yourself for the sake of a higher thing. So that means that you establish moderation in your eating, moderation in drinking and sleeping, in dancing and music, in relationships, in friendship. Everything's in moderation, in taking pleasures, yes, but in moderation. So if the discipline is good, then it will bear good fruit in your life. And the most important discipline of all is loving others. That's always, of course, the highest thing to do. Charity, the denying of myself, the sacrifice of myself for the sake of others. And that might be simply denying that temptation I have to make fun of that person or to ridicule them, or denying the temptation I have to gossip about somebody, rather than be affirming in the way I speak to others. Not criticizing and tearing people down, but building them up. That's the sort of thing we deny ourselves for the sake of the other. Now, I want to say just a few brief words about fasting, because fasting is very important in the spiritual life too, that we learn to deny ourselves for the sake of a higher good. And the deepest hunger in the human heart is for God. So when we fast, we're actually like expressing that. Now, Jesus says that man does not live on bread alone, but in every word that comes from the mouth of God. And so when we fast, we're actually sort of expressing deep in a bodily way our hunger for God. That's what's more important than the hunger for anything else, right? And to experience that in a physical way helps us to appreciate that the world cannot satisfy the deepest hunger of the heart, right? And it helps us gain control over our basic appetites so that these basic drives don't govern us and master us in any way. So fasting is a way of self-emptying. It's a way of sort of letting go of the things that we hold on to so that we can really appreciate the most important thing is our relationship with God himself. It purifies our heart in that way. But fasting is not just for food, of course. We can maybe fast from social media. That'd be a good one, huh? Or from Netflix, So we're growing in a greater self-control, right? And we develop an interior strength and get in touch with spiritual reality more as a result of it. The Lord gives us a sort of a sense for the spiritual more because we're not so clamoring for the satisfaction to come from the material world. So that's it. I just invite you then to just look at your life and see, do I have a self-discipline in my life? Is there a way in which I need to sort of gain greater self-control? Ask for the help of the Holy Spirit and then make the hard decisions. Put something into your life that's really difficult, but with a purpose of building your relationship with God ever more deeply, where you can turn to Him more in love. Bless His name.